That was Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis in January of this year, asking a judge to block the release of a report made by a special grand jury detailing indictment recommendations. Ms. Willis wanted it blocked because, in her words, charging decisions were imminent. Now, she made that request in January, and she indicted last month in August. We clearly have very different definitions of the word imminent, but DA Willis did manage to keep the charging recommendations in that report secret until today. You might remember that after DA Willis's special grand jury finished its investigation, this woman, the foreperson of that special grand jury, Emily Kohrs, she did a bunch of TV interviews in which she sort of tiptoed around who was on the list of people that the grand jury thought DA Willis should indict. But Emily Kohrs very clearly wanted to spill the beans.
So we're talking about multiple people.
Yes.
How long, how many people? Was this a long list?
It's not a short list. It's not a short list. We saw 75 people, and there are 6 pages of the report cut out, I think, if you look at the page numbers. Mm-hmm. So it's not...
So we're talking about more than a dozen people?
I would say that, yes.
Okay.
I guess we will call that willpower. And now, today, we finally know what special grand jury foreperson Emily Kohrs was dying to tell the world. They recommended indicting 39 people. Is it more than a dozen? I would say that, yes. Yeah, it's a whole heck of a lot more than a dozen. Now, I know most public analysis of DA Willis's decision to indict the 19 people she did indict has framed this as a sweeping indictment. But given the number of people she could have indicted, maybe it's sort of a conservative indictment, numerically speaking. Here are the 21 people that the special grand jury recommended be indicted that DA Willis ultimately did not indict. That's a lot of people. Among them are 10 fake electors, 6 lawyers, and 3 U.S. senators. Now, one of those fake electors is the current lieutenant governor of Georgia, Burt Jones. The reason for his exclusion is likely because DA Willis held a fundraiser for Jones's political opponent, so the judge overseeing the case has disqualified Ms. Willis from prosecuting him. So it makes sense why Burt Jones didn't ultimately get indicted. As for the other 9 fake electors, the New York Times reported in the spring that 9 Georgia fake electors had taken immunity deals. They had begun cooperating with DA Willis's investigation. So that could explain why they did not get indicted. But what about everybody else? What about Senator Lindsey Graham? You might remember that more than a month before Trump infamously called Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and asked him to find nearly 12,000 votes, you might remember that in November of that same year, Lindsey Graham gave Mr. Raffensperger his own call. In that call, Mr. Raffensperger said that Senator Graham appeared to suggest that he, Raffensperger, find a way to toss illegally cast ballots. To toss legally cast ballots. At the time, Senator Graham said the characterization of his call as soliciting the Secretary of State to toss ballots was ridiculous. Today, the senator put out a statement saying he just had questions and he was doing his due diligence. But as Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, described that call, there was just an implication of look hard and see how many ballots you could throw out. By the way, all of that was publicly, contemporaneously reported. And so when Senator Graham ultimately voted to acquit President Trump in his January 6th impeachment trial in the Senate, Senator Graham himself was under investigation, which is ironic, a wild conflict of interest, both. I don't know. And now we know that the special grand jury voted in favor of DA Willis indicting Senator Graham.